I like to assume that people have good intentions, but I also think people definitely have a bottom line with entertainment of this nature. Hello everybody, it's Taylor Gonzaga, or otherwise known as Cecilia with the Cecilia Music YouTube channel. It's been a while since I've been on the channel, and I could get into a million explanations for it, but I think the bottom line is, in the last couple years, life has just been lifing. I won't get into it too much, like I said in this video. Maybe at some point in a future video, I'll give more of an explanation as to why the content on this channel has been a little bit chaotic and erratic, but so has my life, and it's starting to calm down, and I'm starting to understand really, really deeply that this channel does mean so much to me, and I always come back to it without fail. I always want to make more content, and I always love talking about music with all of you. This is a little bit of a different reaction and analysis video than what I've done in the past. So a lot of people know me as a big fan of like contemporary music, especially like more ethereal contemporary music like Aurora. We've done a lot of Angelina Jordan. We've done a lot of Dimash on this channel. There's still more content about those artists coming your way. But I also have a really, really, really big passion for musical theater and opera. My company originally was named Opera Cecilia. Now it's more Music Cecilia because I talk about a lot of other genres of music on this channel as well. I love all genres of musical theater. I have a cork board behind me that has Broadway shows that I've been to as an audience member, but I've also been in several musicals and operas myself. Right now, I am currently performing the role of the Beggar Woman in Stephen Sondheim's Sweeney Todd with a local company here in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm having an absolute blast with it. It has been such a wonderful experience. And this next singer that I am going to talk about, she's brand new to this channel, is a musical theater singer. I've been following her career for a while now. She's a young one, newer in the industry, and she is absolutely amazing. And her name is Tory Vagasy. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Since then, she's been doing a lot of work in New York, and I've recently been following her social media, and I think she also is doing something with Disney Cruise Lines really soon. So she is cultivating a wonderful career in the musical theater sector for herself. AGT proved as a great launch pad for exposure for her as an artist, but I'm gonna tell you something. In my reaction and analysis, you're gonna see that I have a little bit of like a salty feeling about these particular reality television talent shows, especially when it revolves around singing. The one that I enjoy watching the most is The Voice, and I still have my bones to pick with their process and the way that they do things. But America's Got Talent in particular is one that I have a bone to pick with. I've rambled on long enough. We're going to talk about Tory today. I'm so excited. We're going to do her performance of Into the Unknown. This was her audition on America's Got Talent. So when we get into the body of this audition, you have this entire production thing that's like ridiculous that's set up by the team, turning Howie Mandel green. It's kind of a Grinch reference. There was an aspect of this, unbeknownst to the artist, oftentimes that is planned, where the judges will purposefully stir the pot for the sake of a narrative on the video, because Howie Mandel's comments here are kind of like unnecessarily rude and grouchy during her audition. And I think this might have been something that was set up to make her more compelling, because for some reason this show really needs there to be like this extra narrative surrounding these artists and contestants. I honestly think their talent is interesting enough alone, and everybody has an interesting backstory because everybody lives a life and goes through life experiences. So I don't think you need to fabricate all this extra stuff on top of it, but I have a sneaky suspicion that that was the case here. That's my theory anyway. Nothing about that can be confirmed, obviously, because I don't work as an executive on the show. When it comes to sharing something as vulnerable as your voice, that's why I tend to have a bone to pick with it, because it can come off as disrespectful or invasive about the artist's personal lives or things that don't even directly have to do with the art. They're setting up this audition dynamic where they're like introducing her as a person to the audience and things like that. And you also notice that Simon is massively guiding that process. The other judges are relatively passive in this moment, but from the very beginning, like the minute Tory walks on stage, Howie Mandel not only is turned green, but has kind of a sourpuss look on his face.
I work as a party princess for kids' parties. I love it. I love kids.
How do you
I feel like this is just like so fabricated because it was that way out the bat. And if that was automatically like some sort of impression he got from her, that's unjustified because she literally was just standing on the stage and existing. I don't know, but I really think that they're pushing a narrative here and she was kind of at the butt end of the narrative. The artist is not 100% aware that these things are going on, but you do sign contracts to get onto these shows. I know because I tried to be on American Idol once a long time ago. You have to sign a contract though when you audition for these shows that if they decide to have you on the show, you basically consent to be sort of like embarrassed, or any of the personal information that you reveal or anything can and will be used to push their narrative no matter what. That's kind of scary. That was scary to me as a teenager when I was signing those things with a parental guardian obviously supervising me, and I still wanted to do it, but it was scary. So I can't imagine what it's like if you actually get chosen to be on the show and those type of situations are like an acting out, coming out in real time. So props to Tory for being so poised through this situation, but I do think it was fabricated to push a narrative.
Thank you so much.
I'm not a musical theater lover.
There we go, right off the bat.
What do you want? 'Cause you've been keeping me awake. Are you here to distract me so I make a big mistake? Or are you someone out there who's a little bit like me, who knows deep down I'm not where I'm meant to be? Every day's a little harder as I feel my power grow. And don't you know there's a part of me that longs to go?
She's like the quintessential clear, beautiful musical theater voice. What I love about her is that she is really not afraid to use her mixed register. A mixed register, when I talk about it with my students, is sort of a combination of chest voice and head voice. So your chest voice is more of this kind of like call sensation voice. It has a little bit more pressure. That's what it's going to feel like when you're, and it's typically characterized by being in your lower register, your chest register. It's the register that you typically speak in. Your head register is inherently less pressurized, especially in like a treble voice type, a higher voice like a soprano or alto. Some people consider it lighter or airier or would describe it that way, but it still should be fully supported. It's just supported in a slightly different way. It's more fluid, it's more flexible. It tends to move with a little bit more agility than the chest register can. There's ways to add fluidity into your chest register too that allows it to be more agile. The passage between the chest voice and the head voice, that's where you want to use a little bit of a mix of both. And I usually encourage my students to lean kind of in the direction of the extreme that they're the closest to. So sometimes that's going to be, if you're in the lower middle register, you're going to have a little more chest voice, a little less head voice, but it's still going to be a mix. And it's the opposite if you're closer to the high. It's going to be more head dominated. Right now, she's kind of in the true middle, or like kind of in the upper middle register. That's sort of where a lot of this song sits in particular. And so she's really good at relieving the pressure by bringing that head mix in. It's not complete head voice. We still want to have the foundation of the chest voice underneath the head, but we have that lessened pressure coming in already. And this allows her to not tire so quickly as a vocalist. It's a really, really great tactic for musical theater singers that have to sing live for long periods of time. Norman the Gnome, my cup right here that I named Norman because I'm a weirdo, he and I both agree that she was very, very impressive in the initial first few phrases of this audition. Now, these AGT judges, especially Howie Mandel and his little salty Grinch act that he has going on here. Just because you don't like a genre doesn't mean it's bad. A lot of people love musical theater, including myself, and what she is doing is a very, very professional quality sound. So let's continue. Let's get into the climactic points of the song and see how she handles the big chorus of this piece, which tends to be the highest impact part to sing.
Into the unknown, into the unknown, into the unknown. Are you out there? Do you know me? Can you feel me? Can you show me?
I know it's it's really, really hard to stop in the middle of pitches. One little anecdote for the Aurora lovers that might be watching this video. This is how I was introduced to Aurora. I was like, who the heck is the spirit of voice in Into the Unknown and Frozen 2? And it was Miss Aurora. That brought me down this entire rabbit hole of all of her music, and they're all on my playlist. And so it is really a beautiful introduction and exposure to the artist that I got through this song, and I'm very thankful for that. I wish I had discovered her maybe from her own like creations and original music first, but I'm just glad that this introduced Aurora and an artist like her to so many other people. I'm just a huge Aurora fan. I'm going to see her in concert in Seattle really soon, and so I just I'm very thankful to this song for introducing me to an artist that has a very special place in my heart now. When it comes to her vocalization here, she's maintaining kind of a mixed belt. So it's chest voice dominant. She's pulling some more of the pressure up there in order to make it higher impact, but she's not overloading. So it's a very trustworthy, consistent sound. It's very hard to break into Broadway. It's very hard to do what she's trying to do, but she is a very top caliber singer, and with her exposure now and the way her career is going now, I would not be surprised if she ended up making it to Broadway. I think that's definitely where her career is heading. And she's also doing some poses, some stances. If you notice, it's kind of into the unknown, and there's kind of this like lift and then release of the body that happens. That can be a form of anchoring, and anchoring is basically reminding yourself that your center of gravity is all the way down into the floor, reminding yourself that you have your entire body to work with as an artist, and anchoring yourself down into that moment. It's not creating unnecessary stiffness. Instead, it's realizing that you have a very, very strong foundation to work with as a vocalist, and really utilizing that to its full potential. What makes me PO'd about Mr. Mendel in this situation is, first of all, he does not come from a vocal performance background. So not only would he not be qualified to judge this type of a singer of this caliber, but also he just doesn't like the genre. And so he thinks that that's a good enough reason to not have this artist go through. Some of the best singers in the world, both in and out of other genres of music, have also performed roles in musical theater. But because they sing musical theater now, does that automatically make them a bad singer? No. I would actually argue that singers of the highest caliber tend to sing in very, very live performance situations like musicals. These are like the athletes of singers, people that sing, dance, act at the same time, and do that in large quantities every single week, maintain a pretty demanding performance schedule every single week. I honestly think that he was the one that was supposed to push the narrative here and supposed to expose the singer to some adversity so that there was a reason for the fans to be like, to rally behind her and be like, oh no, you're wonderful, boo on Howie. We needed like a hero versus villain situation here, at least in the eyes of the producers, and I really don't think that's necessary. I think she is interesting enough on her own, and I think the show itself is interesting enough on its own to not do this. I think musical theater fans especially will absolutely adore her. There is an audience for that. That's so hard to do. Good on her.
Don't leave me alone. How do I follow you into the unknown?
I love the fact that the other judges were so encouraging of her. She did deserve those wowed facial expressions, because what she did was just an incredible feat, especially under immense amounts of pressure. The edit of Howie no longer being the Grinch is a little bit misleading because he says weird stuff in the judges' commentary. It did deserve a standing ovation. It was a solid audition, and it was an incredible feat for her to get up there. It's so hard to be poised in these kind of situations. Like if you think about like a typical live show with an audience that is paying a ticket to specifically see that show and experience that performance, that is still high pressure. That's still a really nervous system dysregulating thing to put your body through as a performer. It is 10 times worse if it's being televised. Your genre is not the mainstream genre that's typically represented on these shows, and there's some narrative being pushed and producers in your face and 10,000 other factors to worry about with these shows that you are not exposed to in a typical onstage situation that she was trained for. She's working with a huge amount of poise and a huge amount of grace, and she is still able to deliver this top-notch vocal performance under all of that pressure. That is something Angelina Jordan also displayed on these type of shows. I'm not saying that these shows don't display incredible talent. I'm saying the talent is good enough to speak for itself, so the producers can get out of the way a little bit. They can go ahead, they can do their thing of making the show look pretty to the audience, making sure it's well organized, and the judges are whatever, that they don't always give the most helpful feedback. They're just celebrity guests on the show essentially. But what I don't like is when the entire show turns into the judges and the performers are kind of a side piece, and I also don't like it when the show tries to push narratives that don't need to exist. Some people may disagree with me on some of my comments on these reality shows in the comments. I do not judge anyone who watches these. I watch them sometimes. I'm not saying they're all bad. Like I said, I love the talent. I am saying that I think it's important to put into perspective how people have to conduct themselves in these environments as the talent being featured on the shows. Yes, it can be fantastic exposure, and yes, it has launched a lot of careers, including like Tory's taken off a lot more, and Angelina Jordan was discovered through these things. But at the same time, we don't want to stop criticizing them, because reality television can stand to be criticized, and our treatment of people on national television or international television, whatever, can stand to be criticized. And let's see what the judges have to say after that banging audition.
Okay, Sophia.
You absolutely deserve to be on Broadway.
Yeah.
You are a
I agree.
Oh, thank you. You're a queen. Thank you.
I agree, yes, you should be on Broadway. And here too, for everyone to hear your beautiful voice. I mean, it is incredible.
Thank you. That means the world to me. Thank you.
Look, you know how many people are trying to get record contracts right now? It's like I've never known anything like it. You got to cut through the noise. And I think the most important thing is knowing where you want to end up.
Simon's bringing up a really good point, because he's saying that the most important thing is for you to know where you want to end up, for you to have like a very, very specific dream. Because there are a lot of people that go into this vaguely and don't really have a tangible plan of action of how they want their career to go once they've experienced the sort of exposure to the success that they want. And having that very specific goal, if she's like, oh, I want to be on Broadway, I want to go this particular sector, can help ground her in these situations where she's going to be compared to a lot of people that have talent acts of a lot of different varieties. Does everything that Simon Cowell does on these shows make me happy? No. He did have a good point in the sense that it's really important to know your mission. That's like one of the biggest things I tell my students is know your mission as an artist. The more you know who you are, the more you realize you're really only competing with yourself, because comparing two artists to each other is comparing like fish to bears. That's so random, but you would never ask a fish to do what a bear does, kind of thing. They're excellent at what they were meant to do and their own specific identity. You want to revel in that. You don't want to feel like you're stuck in this self-comparison thing. So I love the fact that he brought that up. That being said, these shows do tend to actively pit people against each other and compare people to each other. And so there's some actions speak louder than words things with these reality television shows that I think can be improved upon, but the overall sentiment is correct.
It was a brilliantly chosen song, and I can see huge potential for you. Howie.
There's no mistaking that you have a powerful voice, and I think that you have the energy, you have the stage presence, you checked every box, but honestly, I don't enjoy that kind of music, so for me, it's a no.
So now we get to the crux of the entire thing. There's a difference between constructive and unconstructive criticism. That's like the most obvious statement I'll ever make in the world, but this is a really good example of that. Because Howie Mandel doesn't like this genre of music, he says no. Because I don't like it. If he had a knowledge of vocal technique, if he had a knowledge of artistic merit, if he had a vocal background, if he was actually like fully qualified to give advice and feedback and tips from a mentorship perspective, which is what I think a judge should be qualified to do in the most ideal competition setting, this judge just said, oh, because I personally am not a fan of the genre of music you sing, you're not good, or you don't deserve to advance in the competition. If he was judging it based off of merit, she has a very, very high amount of merit in what she does. So that alone should qualify her to be able to advance to the next round. But because he's not basing it off of any sort of curriculum-based or objective criteria, and maybe that's my musical academia brain coming in, and that's not how these shows operate that way, or it's not that deep, whatever. It turns into a, oh, me no likey, which is not really constructive criticism. I had a competition situation I was in as an opera singer where this one guy that was judging me very clearly just personally didn't like my vocal timbre, which is fine because you're gonna have people who do and do not like your voice. You're not gonna be everybody's aesthetic taste. But when you're in a judging situation, judging off of specific criteria, what I also noticed was he was not able to give me any feedback based off of that criteria as to how I could improve. It was just basically, I don't like it. That's not good enough as a judge. That's not good enough in a mentorship situation. That's unconstructive criticism. You're entitled to not like my voice, but you're not entitled to give me feedback at that point, or you're not qualified to give me feedback because you can't give me anything that I can work with to improve in the future. Howie would not be able to sit down with the singer and talk about how she could technically improve. He even said himself that there is nothing she can really do to improve. He just doesn't personally like it. There's a fine line between I don't like, so therefore it is bad, and this person actually just stands to be able to improve in their craft. And he just said that he doesn't see anything she could have to improve upon. He's not qualified to make that statement, but he still doesn't think that she deserves to advance to the next round. This is what happens when these judges' personal opinions are what ultimately drives the narrative of the show. Your personal aesthetic tastes. People can acknowledge the fact that judge with my competition could have acknowledge the fact that I had good vocal technique, that I was sound in my preparation for my performances, that I was expressive in my performances, but my voice was just not to his aesthetic taste. That's fine. That's gonna happen. But that doesn't mean that I should be barred from a career or from a valuable opportunity just because I'm not his personal aesthetic tastes. I'm talking specifically about a competition situation too, and people may disagree with me. That's totally fine. This is just the universal problem that I have with all of these reality shows, is none of these judges are actually qualified to give any meaningful feedback. The only person that is somewhat qualified from a business perspective to give feedback on this panel is Simon, just because he has so much experience promoting artists under his label and working with artists in the music management industry. Heidi Klum, very, very sweet lady. She seems wonderful. She's a model. Sophia is an actress, and so if Sophia were to get in front of another actor on this stage, which is not typically what you see in these shows, you don't see people audition with just like acting monologues or something, she might be qualified to give valuable feedback on that. Howie gives great feedback to the comedians because that's the background he comes from. In these variety shows, it's really, really hard to find people who are universally qualified to talk about multiple acts. If it was just a singing, dancing, and acting show and you had Broadway people on, then you would have an equal amount of qualifications compared in relative to the talent that you're on. So that's why I think actually more specialized reality television shows about just singing or just acting, that kind of stuff that don't become too gimmicky, are probably the best shows that exist out there. And I have a little bit of an issue with AGT because it just all kind of feels a little bit hokey to me at times when it comes to the judge versus contestant relationship.
Who doesn't enjoy musical theater?
How do you even put a no on that voice?
I actually don't think you're booing loud enough.
Yeah, this is
I can't hear you.
You know what? I think it's time that we stand up to the Howies of this world.
This is totally a narrative. Their producers are probably telling the audience how to react. There's a good guy. It's like good cop versus bad cop in the judges panel. And this is just so unnecessary. And I think it like overshadows what she did in her audition. I think she could make it to the semifinals or even have won this competition without this crap happening. So it just bothers me because it takes away from what is really important. You totally have the freedom to disagree with me respectfully in the comment sections. I would love to hear your feedback on what you think of these shows, what you think of this particular artist. Do you think that somebody's personal aesthetic tastes have more to do with a competition or judging situation than I think that they should have to do with that? Like, that's totally valid. So we're here for really, really respectful discourse in the comments, but I'm totally open to hearing all of your opinions.
And make a statement here. and say to the Howies of this world, we're not going to take this anymore, Howie. We're not going to listen to people like you anymore. We're going to support talent.
Have the inspo music.
We're going to encourage talent. Heidi.
Of course, it's a big fat yes. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna be your second yes.
Thank you.
We're sending Tory into the next round because you have talent.
Thank you.
And he will not crush you. And he won't crush other people anymore. Thanks to you. Thank you.
I can also tell that Howie's a little bit annoyed with the situation. Like, I'm starting to see micro expressions of like genuine annoyance. I think it's because he was the bad guy in the narrative and he signed a contract to be on the show. And I'm sure that the judges sort of are putting on a performance for the audience as well, that the producers are mostly in charge of. This is definitely like producers sitting down and crafting a narrative for an episode of this show to be as interesting as possible. Tory herself, I'm pretty sure, has said that she did not go on to the show necessarily. Like, her final dream in the world was not to be the winner of America's Got Talent. It was to make it as far as she possibly could and to let it be kind of a catalyst to get her closer to her actual dream, which is to be on Broadway and have a career in musical theater. She is very successfully getting a career in musical theater, and she did get the exposure she needed from this show. So mission accomplished. She did not have to make it to the end. And actually, some of the contestants that end up being the most popular or the most successful after these shows in the industry end up not being the ones who win. That's not always the case, but a lot of the times the opportunities that are provided to you from winning these competitions, the record labels that you might get in contact with as a singer, the Vegas show that they might give you, which is, I think, one of the prizes for this particular show, those things don't necessarily end up guaranteeing you a long-term career in the industry. So much of that is still so self-cultivated and self-started, even if one of these shows can give you a good step forward. This is also the case with like really prestigious music conservatories. I did not go to a big name school. I actually chose not to audition for big name schools because I didn't necessarily know, after hearing about some of it, some of the dynamics in some of the schools I was considering before, if I would thrive in an environment like that with where I was at with my mental health at the time. And instead I ended up in a school where I was really an asset to my opera program and ended up getting roles and thriving even through a pandemic, which was happening at the same time I was getting my master's degree. But I knew somebody who had gone to Juilliard, and she was just like, I graduated Juilliard just like you graduate any other university or conservatory for music, and I wasn't guaranteed a career afterward. I still had to work really, really hard for that. So getting those opportunities to get exposed on shows like this or go to a big name school or whatever it might be doesn't guarantee you a long-term career. That is cultivated very intentionally by making the most of those opportunities, getting as much exposure from those opportunities as you can, and then growing that into something. That may plant the seed for you, but it doesn't make the plant thrive. Another thing to keep into perspective too is that America's Got Talent and a lot of these other shows recruit their talent pool from people who already have popular followings on social media, because that feels like a ratings guarantee to the producers of the show. So Tory had already cultivated a social media following for herself before going on this show. A lot of other artists have too. That is incredible. It's amazing what they were able to build themselves, but it does put it into perspective that these people are not just like plucked out of nowhere and giving these huge opportunities. So much in the arts is entrepreneurial and self-cultivated, and I'm working really, really hard on doing that myself in my own career, but I also really encourage my students and other fellow artists watching this channel to do the same. Be entrepreneurial, be creative, think out of the box, and you will find a career that not only thrives a little bit more consistently, but also gives you so much more creative control and fulfillment over your artistic destiny and future. If you're interested in me divulging a little bit more about my insights of these reality television shows surrounding the arts, let me know. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, promote this video, tell your friends about this channel. A lot more is coming, I promise. And thank you so much for being patient with me when I have to take breaks for my mental and physical health. Thank you so, so much. And I love you all, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.